So let's get going on the Greeks. One of the most fundamental and influential groups in the history of science and society comes to us from ancient Greece. Just as we've done in other places, let's start with the basics, right? So for me, that often involves geography. So let's get going on geography. You can see here we have a map of the ancient Mediterranean, and Greece is right here, following my little arrow, in the southernmost part of the Balkan Peninsula. Though this map will show you that the Greeks not only inhabited that particular region of the Mediterranean, but these darker browns or oranges going all around show us that the Greeks were engaged in civilization all around the Mediterranean. So North Africa, Spain, southern France, huge influence in southern Italy, to be sure, and all around Turkey and the Black Sea. We'll find that when we're looking at the geography of the Greeks had no great river civilizations like the other civilizations we've looked at. They did not have a lot of great agricultural land. In fact, only about 20% of mainland Greece here can be farmed. And so they figured out that they had to spread out if they wanted to succeed. And so they spread out to places that were more fertile, that were easier to farm. Also from this map you'll see that in McClellan and Dorn they will talk about Greeks coming out of Ionia, Greeks coming out of Attica. Athens is here, Sparta is here, and again Miletus, one of the homes of some of the great philosophers of the day that contribute to the scientific approach of looking at the world. Samos also one of the important regions here. So the Greek mainland, very mountainous, very rocky, very limited farming. I've always thought it amazing that people with so few resources could come up with some of the most important ideas in human history. We're doing some of the basics, and one of the images that I've come across here frequently is also the Greeks are not only a great philosophical group who were great sailors and managed to get all over the Mediterranean. They're also known for the warfare that they get involved in and their military science, if you will, that they influence the world with. This image is from a piece of pottery. It's the interior, the bottom of a bowl, if you will. And it shows a Greek over here to the right with his shield, the round shield featuring Pegasus, attacking, going after in battle a Persian. Both of them carry swords that have been made of iron. And the idea here is to remind you that it's not only just the craftsmanship that gets us military tools and technology, but it's also sort of the intellectual development that the Greeks did on military science. We won't have time in this class to go through all of it, but their hoplite phalanx, which became very famous and very effective, continues, if you will, to be a method of deploying infantry even to this day. So some of the basics on Greek civilization. Let's start with a little bit of chronology. The Archaic era, this is the Greeks themselves called it the old days. Archaic just means old. From about 800 to 500 BC, give or take. During this time period we get Homer writing the Iliad and the Odyssey. During this time period we get the first Olympics. So if you're interested in Greek history, sort of the culture of Greek history, the literature, the sports, it's during the Archaic period that much of this begins. We also have during the Archaic period the development of the city-state, the polis in Greek. There is no one main country of Greece, but there are a lot of city-states. When we get to more of a discussion of Greek science, we find that there are, unlike Mesopotamia, later on unlike Egypt, there's no great king patronizing engineers and scientists or mathematicians. These Greeks are going to have to sort of work on their own because there is no great state patronizing for most of Greek history. It's also during the Archaic period that we get the beginnings of democracy. McClellan and Dorn are very interesting in that they believe that it is the sort of give and take, the debating in democracy, right, that inspires philosophers to have this give and take, this debating over ideas. And McClellan and Dorn in particular say that democracy is a big contributor to the science that the Greeks are practicing. Finally, in this early area, we get the pre-Socratics. These are a group of philosophers that are before Socrates, so the pre-Socratics. And while Socrates and Plato and Aristotle were very much interested in how human beings live in political organization and how human beings live ethically with one another, the pre-Socratics are very much interested in the philosophy of the natural world. I have this image of the Athenian owl because, again, it's another element of technology. The Greeks have a coined economy. In fact, they're the first to introduce a coined economy. And this is a silver tetradrachm. This is a silver coin from Athens. You may have seen the alpha. This is a theta and an epsilon. Sort of Athens abbreviated, or Athena even abbreviated. Athena was the patron goddess of Athens, and this is her owl. So a really nice example of Athenian coinage. Athenian coinage was so fine, so well received and accepted that it became primarily the coinage of the Mediterranean for quite some time. It's about 96% pure bullion. Has to be a little less than 100% because it just is too soft. Other examples from the Greeks: monumental building, right? And so here's the Parthenon, one of the examples of that. We'll get back to that. The classical era, also in Greek tradition, this is a period of warfare for the Greeks. Not only did the Greeks fight the Persians, as we indicated from the artwork that you see here on this slide, but the Greeks also began to fight one another. That's the Peloponnesian War. And that's the very famous war between Athens and Sparta. We mentioned earlier that the classical era is also the time period of great art and architecture, with the example of the Parthenon that we gave. The classical era is also a time period when the Greeks introduced theater as a concept, both drama and comedy. And also, in the classical era, we also get the philosophy, as we mentioned earlier, of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates and Plato, absolutely interested, as we said before, in sort of the science of how people live together. Aristotle interested in that as well, but also in almost all elements of philosophy, from the natural world to the way people live together. So, again, the classical era, very impressive in all that. We'll take a break here and then start a new video just after this.